Hey guys, Ryan from TA Appliances and Barbecues here. You know me, but you don't know Nikki, okay? Nikki's here to join us today and show us an awesome recipe. You excited to show us?
I'm super stoked.
Right, it's her first time with us, okay? So if you like what you see, make sure you're liking, subscribing, commenting, whatever else, okay? Let us know that you want to have Nikki back and we'll bring her back, okay? Lots of times if you want. All right, so let's get to it, okay, Nikki?
Cool, sounds good. So I'm gonna start by making the fresh pasta dough. I'm making an egg pasta dough. When you're starting out, I would recommend using a scale to weigh your ingredients out, just so that you can get a good ratio of the egg to flour. It's gonna make all the difference when you're rolling out the pasta, you're processing it through the machine, and most importantly, the texture of it when you're eating it. I'm gonna make enough pasta for about 4 people, I'd say. I'm gonna use about 290 grams of flour to 2 whole eggs and then 2 egg yolks, and that's gonna be the ratio I'm gonna use. So we'll start measuring that out. I'm using a bowl to do this. You don't have to. If you're comfortable doing the pasta on just a cutting board, you can measure it out on your board as well. I just like having a bowl to help me keep everything more contained. Now I'm gonna use my egg to just make a little well in the center of the bowl there. You want it to be deep enough that it goes to the bottom and big enough so that it's gonna hold all of the yolks. That looks about good. And then you can just add in your eggs. 2. And then if you save your whites, you can save your egg whites. I don't need to save them today, so I'm just going to focus more on the yolk than anything. Hopefully this works the way that I want it to.
I noticed you use the countertop to crack it rather than the edge of the bowl. Why do you do that?
I prefer to do it that way just so that the shells don't get lost. So I get more fragments when I kind of break it on the edge of a bowl versus flat. But for whatever your comfortability is, like however you crack your eggs. So there we go. We've got 2 egg yolks, 2 full large eggs in there. I'm gonna add about 1 tablespoon of oil. I've got like a garlic flavored oil here. You can use just regular or whatever your favorite olive oil is. And then finally, just a pinch of salt. When you're mixing your pasta dough, I like to break up my yolks in the center first and make sure that they're all kind of whisked together before I really worry about incorporating any of the flour. I've done this so many times, not neatly, and it's gone all over the place, all over the counter. So once you get the flour kind of started to mix in and it looks like a little bit of a clumpy mess, I bring it over to a cutting board and I'm gonna turn it out on the board there for you. So just kind of make sure you get all the bigger pieces of dough, and then whatever's kind of left over in terms of the flour, just leave it to the side for now. I've got a bench scraper here to help me break up the dough a little bit and just incorporate those little bits of flour. There's no real science to this.
Everything's cool.
It should start to resemble more of like a pliable dough once you get to this stage. And you can start just using your hands. It's gonna be nice and soft. That's why I like the extra yolks. It gives you a really nice soft dough, easy to work with. If it's too wet and it's sticking to the board, add some more flour from your bowl. It's always easier to add more dry ingredients than it is to go back and add more wet.
People could though like over flour though if they're not like actually working the dough, right? If they're not putting enough effort into it?
Definitely. For sure. It's all by touch, and the more that you do this, the more you get the feel for it. But it's kind of like, if I had to compare it to anything, like a Play-Doh. If you get the consistency of like a Play-Doh, you're doing the things, you're doing it right. If you're gluten intolerant and you like to experiment with gluten-free flours, I've tried the same recipe using a gluten-free flour, and if you get a 1-to-1, like the Bob's Red Mill or any of the ones that you find in regular supermarkets, it works just the same. The dough might not be as soft as it would with a wheat flour, but if you're working on catering to those dietary intolerances, it's still gonna give you a very similar product. Cool, so that's pretty much what you're gonna get. Usually, I'll leave it in the fridge for like 30 minutes just to rest. So you've got your dough ball. I'm gonna put a little bit more flour on my board because there's nothing worse than sticking pasta. I'm gonna cut it into 2 main pieces, 4 maybe, to make it a little easier. And this is just a rough roll. We're gonna use the pasta machine so we can get it nice and thin. It's really hard to achieve that with just a rolling pin. I mean, it's definitely possible, but it takes a while, a lot of patience. Got a couple basil leaves here. You can use any herb. I just like basil because I think it's delicious in pasta, goes well. You could do this with oregano, rosemary. I'm also gonna use a little bit of water before I lay my other piece of dough on top, just so that it seals it a little bit better. So just with your fingers, you can brush it, or if you got a little oil brush or marinating brush, you can just in and around your leaves there. Take your other piece and right on top, covering as much as you can. And then I'm gonna start this with my rolling pin. So you can kind of see the colors starting to come through there. But when we put it through the actual machine, you'll be able to see them so much better. It's super pretty. It's such a fancy looking pasta that really isn't fancy and is not that hard to make.
Right.
There we go. So this one, just gently. It's gonna be obviously a bit thicker because you got 2 sheets now, but that was our first one. And as you can see, you can slowly start to see the leaves becoming more visible. Lovely. And just keep repeating that exact process, going down to the thinner diameter there. So it depends on how toothsome you like your pasta, how much texture you like it to have.
Did you say toothsome?
Toothsome.
I like that word.
Toothsome. You know, it's got a bite. It's got some tooth to it. But yeah, you can see now they're kind of breaking up a little bit, but it's beautiful and it's gonna add a really nice flavor to the pasta when it's cooking. Cool. All right, here we go. So that's basically the final dough you're gonna end up with, something that looks kind of like that.
Wow.
For cutting the pasta into shapes, you can use a regular knife or a pizza wheel. I've got one that has like almost like a fluted edge, so it's gonna just look a little prettier. I'm gonna trim my ends up. There we go, on the other end. I always save my scraps because I re-roll it back into pasta. Sometimes when you've used it too many times, it gets just a bit too tough. And this kind of noodle, it's called, I'm gonna butcher this, but I think it's called pappardelle. So it's just like a handmade thicker noodle, thicker than a fettuccine noodle, but I like thick pasta, so it'll be really nice for this recipe. You can make this into fettuccine or whatever shape spaghetti, but I think that the thicker noodles allow you to see the herbs in it. All right, so basically we just repeat that process until all your dough's used up and you got all your noodles made. And you can dry these noodles too. You don't have to cook them right away. You can freeze them, you can dry them, store them. They keep for, I would say, about a month in the freezer if you're gonna freeze them. And maybe in the fridge, I wouldn't wait more than a couple days, maybe like 3 or 4. Yeah, pasta is super forgiving that way. Ready to cook the pasta. Okay, so for that, I'm going to, my first time using an induction cooktop, so this is super exciting. I got water in there. I'm gonna salt it very heavily. That's a super tip. This is your only chance really to add any salty flavor to your pasta. You only put a pinch itself into the dough, so I always say you want it to look like, you know, salty like the ocean. That should be good. And just a little bit of olive oil too, so our noodles don't stick to the bottom of the pan. And let her go just till it boils. Heat up another pan over here for the sauce when the pasta is boiled. I'm just gonna put this one on really low though, so we can melt the butter and get the garlic going in there. Maybe like a 5, it's more than enough. Just gonna throw some butter in there. It looks boiled, yeah. Cool, all right. It takes about 3 minutes, I'd say, but it depends on a couple different factors. Also, how al dente you like your pasta. I like mine to have a little bit more bite to it. There we go. I just got a little bit of garlic that's gonna go in there. Maybe about like 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. I love garlic. Just measure with your heart. So let that go. That's gonna be our sauce. It's a really simple sauce. I feel like with all the flavor that we have with the basil in there, it doesn't need too much to give it, to coat it, you know? Just some butter and garlic. Super simple. I will add just a pinch of salt. A little bit of lemon zest, just for some fresh brightness in there so it's not too rich, which also just smells great and super fresh. And I'm gonna turn this right down because the garlic's starting to get brown, the butter's starting to get brown, so I'm gonna turn it down to like a 3. And then let's check on our pasta. Ooh, I'm so excited. It's gonna be so yummy. The best thing ever, Parmesan cheese, just a bunch. But like if you're measuring, maybe like a 1/4 cup. My dad hates the smell of Parmesan cheese. I don't know what's up with that. But
Some people do.
yeah, it's a stinkier cheese than most, for sure. I'm definitely the person when you go to the restaurant, they're like, would you like fresh Parmesan? Load me up. That's good for now. We can add more to the pasta once it's done. Give it a good stir. Lovely. All right, so we will bring our pot over to our colander in the sink there. I don't rinse my pasta. I leave a little bit of the pasta water on it because the starches are gonna help the sauce stick to the noodles. So we'll bring it over, just strain it a little bit, and toss it right in. And just for a little bit of extra saltiness, and because I love prosciutto, I'm gonna chop up a little bit of prosciutto and put it in there.
Say what?
Say what? I just got some kitchen shears. I got some prosciutto. I'm just gonna chop that up very thinly, like Italian bacon. All right, and let's stir all that in. This cooktop, I am very impressed. The even heat and how fast things heat up.
It's pretty fast, eh?
That butter melted in like 20 seconds. I was right out of the fridge. It was super cold. All right.
But control too, right? Like
Yeah.
you're able to get
Even
it to,
the pot with the, usually big mess all over my stove. If I forget to turn my water down and it goes to like, and I put the pasta in there, it'll boil over. It'll get everywhere. It's a big mess to clean up. This was like prime. Okay, lovely. We'll get this plated up. This looks like it's got all the flavors it needs. We bring it over here. Beautiful. Finish it off with a little bit of extra lemon, a little bit of cheese, or a lot of bit of cheese. Again, measure with your heart.
All right, so how's it taste?
Here we go. Live taste test. We'll see. Mmm. That's not fair.
You said that's not fair?
That's so good. That's so good. Oh, homemade pasta.
Well, there you go, folks. All right. So this is Nikki, okay? If you like the dish that she showed us here today, right? And you want to see more from Nikki, let us know. Also, where can we find you?
I have an Instagram. You can follow me at Nikki Bowman. B-O-W-M-A-N is my last name. Nikki Bowman 97. I'm on Instagram. You can find me there.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks for coming by.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was great. We hope to see you again real soon.
Definitely.
All right.